Greetings, I present to you the SMK, the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope, on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph, Ontario, through the web on CFRU.ca, and syndicating across Canada. I am your guardian overseer, Nicholas Cooper. We will be looking inward and beyond along the branches of progressive, fusion, and alternative genres. A prismatic, healing anomaly, and other unique discoveries near and far. Join me as we gaze into the audible lens out at the diverse musical landscape on the ever-changing horizon. Welcome, my good sentries. My name is Nicholas Cooper, pronouns he, him, their. I am the guardian overseer of the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope, an eclectic music radio program broadcasting from CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph, Ontario, and syndicating across Canada. In association with Wavelength Music, the Toronto-based professional not-for-profit arts organization, I'm delighted to conduct this special edition of An Audience Far from the Observational Tower, my music interview series on the SMK taking place through remote portals during the COVID-19 pandemic. Wavelength has organized their 2021 Winter Festival in the form of free online YouTube live streams throughout February, and they've given me the opportunity to talk with one of their performing artists. And they are with me right now. Would you like to introduce yourself, your pronouns, and where you're currently joining from?
Sure, yes. Thank you again, Nicholas. And my name is Daniel Monkman. Also, my spirit name is Zoongide'ewin. And my pronouns for right now are just he or they. And I'm broadcasting from Toronto, Ontario.
Oh, awesome. How have you been doing lately?
Lately as in like a week, or lately?
Sure, we can do a week. I'm good with any time length.
With the new restrictions of lockdown, I'm just continuing my self-isolation, I guess you could say. Just working on my newest record, trying to stay focused on that, and preparing for Wavelength, actually, too.
Ooh, that sounds so exciting. So being prepared for new music creations and performances.
Yeah. It's hard not to during these times. I'm a big fan of film, so I watch a lot of film to inspire me to make new music videos or write like a screenplay. So it's, I don't know, I feel like a lot of musicians have been kind of preparing for something like this. So it's, it hasn't been too difficult.
I guess it's like a good ebb and flow, like a yin and yang between the best environment for creation, also the worst, being like trapped in yourself. Like it's so back and forth right now.
Yeah, and I had just moved from Hamilton, Ontario, where I kind of knew the area, and I was in a quiet area where I could run, and it was during the summer. But moving to Toronto in the past little while, the winter has kind of settled in, and going out for a jog is kind of not. I could do it, but it would be tough. And there's just more people in Toronto, so it's kind of hard to navigate through that kind of stuff.
Oh, I can completely understand that. So, some other intro questions I want to ask you. I have an easy one, like a fun one, and also a kind of deep question. First, or what do you want? Do you want the easy or the deep question first?
Let's go with the easy one first, because I like to stretch out the deep ones.
Okay. So what are your favorite foods that you enjoy?
Favorite foods? I love pears, to be honest. I know some people have like a vendetta against them, but I actually like a really ripe pear. And other than that, though, maybe pizza. I like pizza a lot.
Are you an advocate for pineapple on pizzas?
I love pineapple on pizza. It's something that I discovered later in life, like a lot of things, and I don't understand why people would limit themselves. I just don't understand that. I'm not about limiting myself. I guess that's what it comes down to. So,
yeah, keeping those avenues open,
yeah,
especially for taste buds.
Yeah, there's something delicious about a pineapple being on top of a pizza that just seems like a crime to limit yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So for the deep question, what are your current life quests?
Life quests. Life quests. That is a deep one. My life quests have have always been I have an answer for it. I just have to think about it just for a second, because my life quest would be to not be so scared of wondering about the universe and the infinity of it. Because I think a lot of my frustrations with the world is not fully understanding what it is. And part of meditation is moving past that idea of like having to know what the mechanics of everything, and more so be in the moment and be mindful and show gratitude. And that's something that is a big quest for me, which will probably take a long time.
Yeah, that's like a lifelong quest, like trying to find yourself within like the universe and not being afraid of it all.
Yeah, because it's scary, all the different possibilities. If the universe is an infinite structure, or I don't even know what you'd call it, like that means that I've lived this life before somewhere. If it's infinity, a different version of myself stressing about stuff, and if that theory is true, it just kind of is too mind-boggling and can really be defeating sometimes. It can be like, okay, well, what does it matter? What does life matter? And it can get kind of dark, and I think that's something that I struggled with growing up, and experimenting with substances like, say, acid. And I was just talking to a friend about it, but I haven't used that stuff since I was in my teens. But from those experiences, it really heightened my sensitivity to it all. And I'm trying to just ground myself now, and just be okay with how life is always happening, and not to fixate on the mechanics of life, and just kind of flow through it.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. Like I know for myself, it's like I always nitpick on myself and some of my like bad qualities, but you just gotta go with the flow and just accept who you are and what you can do, and just improve yourself in the ways you can.
Exactly. Just focus on building yourself up, because people tend to try to help others when they actually need the help. And it's just a good practice to, show yourself self-love before you can maybe love someone else.
Yeah, that's so true. why don't we now go into our COVID-19 pandemic check-in? I've been doing these with my other audience artist features.
Sure.
How have you been handling this pandemic?
Just before COVID, I had been putting out a couple singles and gaining a lot of momentum. And I was in New York in March playing this really cool festival that my friend put on, called New Colossus. And it just felt like everything was going as planned, and it was like there was a lot of momentum, and arriving in New York to see the fear in everyone's face made me quickly realize that this wasn't just a flu, that it was something else, and that really threw a wrench in what I thought was something that was owed to me, waiting 10 years to put out a record and to put so much work into the PR campaign for it to kind of just, it felt at that time in March that it was going to go nowhere. But I had to really calm myself down and realize that this might be part of the plan. And so from then on, I just kind of treated the COVID like it was part of the plan. And that I had to just kind of accept that I couldn't really change anything, and the most that I could do was just kind of experience it, and that's just kind of how I've been handling it this whole time up until today. I have a couple friends who've been on the edge and cracking a bit, and I'm just trying to keep everything equilibrium, and not get too sad and not get too happy about certain things, just kind of find a fine balance. And that's just how I've been surviving, honestly, just that. And yeah, just that alone.
I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know for me, have you had like a more fast fluctuating between good high moments and then low moments during the pandemic?
Yeah, definitely ups and downs. My friend Travis, who was a lifetime friend of mine since we were really young, and he passed away in May, in the middle of COVID, or I guess in the kind of beginning. And so that really that really set the bar for as low as I could ever get. And because of the travel restriction, I wasn't able to fly home. I'm from Manitoba, and I wasn't able to go to the memorial. So from then, it was just kind of I was like, if I can get through this, I can get through anything. If I can just get over this. And yeah, so I just, dealing with death isn't a new thing for me. So I just, I internalized it, and then I worked through it, and it, yeah, I just, from then on, it feels like a walk in the park, Before COVID, I had a day job that I wasn't really too fond about, but because I had to wait 2 years to put out the record with the label, I had to get a day job in between, and it was really killing me. The first year of having to get it, it killed me, and being told by my manager that the label had to take extra time to find a new publicist to release the album, it really damaged my soul. So when COVID was just before COVID started, I had a tour, and I was just about to leave that job because I was like, oh, my musical career is about to start. I don't need this day job anymore. And it was really a big step for me, because I hate working on other people's dreams. I don't like it. I like to just work on my dreams, and that's what I like to do. I don't like to invest my time in people that I don't really enjoy. So it was big for me. And when I was able to when COVID happened, that job shut down, and I was able to just focus all my time on music, and that brings me a lot of happiness and joy. And with the album coming out, I had money coming in, other that I didn't need my day job really. So I'm honestly just very grateful, and I've been having obviously some bad things have happened to me and my friends, but like my childhood friends, I've been pretty good, to be honest. Like nothing can really do what it did to me in May, so I'm pretty good right now.
Well, condolences for your loss, but I also think, that music, like, I know for me has really helped myself, and like music is something just like ethereal, just magical in its ability to help out everyone or certain people, and
a lot of people for sure.
Has there been any things that you've done, like maybe aside from music, that has helped you get through this past year?
Yeah, I started, I kind of debuted a short film that I produced, written, and directed myself. I know it sounds like a lot of titles, but really it was just me filming and improvising in front of the camera with like different lights. And music has been a big passion of mine, but film was before music. Like I would go visit my dad in Winnipeg, and he would put on a VHS of like Anaconda, and we would sit there and watch it. And film was just always something that my dad would always be like, let's go to the movies, get some popcorn and stuff. And so music was always ingrained in my creativity, subconscious creativity. And so now that I'm older, I found music as a way that I was able to, I couldn't afford a camera back in the day, so a little acoustic guitar and an 8-track was reasonable for me to do. So I ventured into music, but I always knew that I would want to use music as a way to lift me up to produce films. And so during lockdown, I was I worked with this indigenous collective from Hamilton called the Bawadin Collective, and they put out my first short film, and I put it out. It's on YouTube and stuff, and it kind of kickstarted my love for film, and I've kept doing it more. And this Wavelength one too, like I filmed it with my friend. I got them to come help me set it up, but I produced it all myself with what we were going to do. So film is something that I love just as much as music, and it's been filling up I've been trying to fill up it more with my time, but working on this new record, music definitely has been kind of more prominent.
Congratulations on your film debut.
Thank you.
Is there specific genres you like of film?
This one that I made was a sci-fi film. I guess you would say speculative fiction, I would say, because it had to do with space. But, it's inevitable that we are in space, so there has been space travel. So it's just like me, I was trying to recreate a perfect sunset or sunrise. I can't tell, because when you're in space, there's no real sunset or anything.
Oh,
so that's what I was capturing, was just like kind of a pan of a big red sun, and it turned out to be really good, And I more so made it as because indigenous culture, we believe that when you pass on to the spirit world, you go and begin your cosmic journey. So in my film, I took the lens off my camera, put it up to the sun, and put it on a tripod. And as the sun's moving and it went into the camera without the lens, it really saturated the image of the sun and made it this like this red ball that was really cool. And because the sun is constant, or we're moving and the sun is moving, that when I put the tripod on the ground, the sun was moving and it looked like as if it was like coming in front of the camera. And with like some other shots in the dark, I was able to create like this kind of space scene. And in the shot, you'll be able to see like this like floating light that's supposed to be like my representation of my friend Travis kind of going through the universe, experiencing the perfect sunset of this big like red sun or something, you know. And yeah, that's so I guess it's like science fiction, but it's like speculative fiction too.
All right, that's very ingenious, actually, of using your camera without the lens. I'm a photographer, well, I guess amateur photographer myself, and I'm also getting a bit into making videos too.
Yeah,
I never thought of trying to take you took off the whole lens and just let it expose to the air.
Yeah. So you just like so I let the sunlight come through this prism that was inside my window. So the prism light would shoot down on like a beam of light, and I would put the beam of the camera in front of the beam of light, and the beam of light would slowly move across the camera because we're moving and the sun is moving. And then that's your shot. It's just like, by creating that, it looks like it's panning. It's not the camera panning, it's actually just the sun moving. But I was able to layer different images together so it looked like the camera was panning. I'll send it to you later.
That'd be great to see.
Yeah.
Why don't we now talk about your passion of music?
Yeah.
Part of I've read your bio that on your label, our Paper Bag Records, a thing that stuck out and is, I guess, its main part of your, your whole life and your music, development is like music saved your life. Mm-hmm. How important is music to you? And in that effect, why do you create and perform music at all?
I think I owe it to music in a weird way, because when I say that music saved my life, it did in a really philosophical way. When I was younger, I grew up on the reserve, and my mom, to give us more opportunities, moved us off the reserve into a town called Selkirk. And upon arriving in Selkirk, I had experienced racism for the first time. Before, it was just something that we kind of knew about on the reserve. But once I got to the actual town, I started noticing people treated me different. So kids wouldn't play with me and stuff. So just like any other Indigenous person coming into the city, we feel isolated from the majority of people in the city. So we always find, for the majority of Indigenous people, they live in more of the poverty areas, and with that you find more Indigenous youth who or maybe don't have a lot of supervision with adults, and they're kind of running around unsupervised. And sometimes, just like in my town, Selkirk, a lot of gangs came out in the early 2000s. The prison that was just outside of the town let go a bunch of inmates, and a lot of them, instead of going to Winnipeg, came to Selkirk, and drugs and violence and gangs kind of followed. And so when my mom moved us to the town, she started to notice that I was hanging out with a lot of Indigenous folk, and a lot of them were great, but a lot of their older relatives started introducing drugs and gang style to us, and I was going into a path that has nothing to do with music. It was like I was listening to a lot of hip hop, which I still love today. But I was more getting into these crimes and going down this lifestyle that if I had continued, I easily could have fallen and down some really dark paths and ended up in institutions like some of those people that I hung out with have gone through. But along that time, my mom realized that, so she was like, okay, I'm going to take my savings, invest in a house, and move us out of the city. So my mom moved us out of the city into a small village called Lebo. And it was there that I went to this school called Happy Thought, and it was filled with a bunch of racist country boys and farmers. But it was there that I found out about misfits. And there was this guy in my class who had the Devil's Lock, and his name was Scott Willett, and he listened to Nirvana, and I was listening to Nirvana at the time. I just got discovered into Nirvana's earlier work, and he showed me how to play guitar. I kind of knew how to play because of my mom, but he really showed me how to, use distortion and stuff like that. And it was from there that I was like, oh, I love music. Like right away, I knew that I couldn't learn other people's songs. I always wanted to write my own. And it was from then that I realized that I could share my story in a way that I could express myself properly. And from music started to unlock a lot of things in my subconscious about, appreciating life, or, now what I know now is that music was like a form of meditation for me back then. And so that's why I say music saved my life, because I could have easily went down a different path, but because of certain scenarios, I ended up finding music and discovering it in a whole different way. And so that's why I say music saved my life.
Yeah, music has that great influence to find yourself and to express yourself. Mm-hmm. Is that also a thing that music does for you? You're able to express yourself in a way that's like different from any other communication?
Yeah, totally. Like, as being, I don't always want the petty, but as being like a First Nations person, I wasn't like, I remember teachers wouldn't want to educate me. They didn't even want to be around me in these racist schools like Happy Thought in these rural areas. So I just felt like for a big part of my childhood, I always just kept quiet. But I always had like a million things going on in my head. And so I just felt like I was kind of muzzled for a lot of it. And when I started experimenting with music, I quickly realized that a lot of my friends were like, you're really good at writing songs. And this was like early on. And even older people from MySpace would message me and be like, oh, your songs are so weird, but like really, really great music. And so I just realized that this was a language that I could speak, that these kids who had everything, who had their parents, had lifestyles that I would always like dream about having, that I had found my own place where it didn't matter where I came from, but what I was doing was better than a lot of the people who I thought were like these, well-off people. But I found my own corner in music, and that's that was like the gold mine. I knew that I hit like a jackpot, but it took a while to kind of like craft it a little bit more.
That's awesome. Like being able to, just find something to keep on going with.
Yeah.
So the guitar was your first instrument that you picked up?
I would say the guitar was the first one because that was what my mom used. But my mom knew that I was going to be creative, so she just bought like a bunch of different instruments. So we had like a drum kit, and I love playing drums. Not so much, she didn't have a piano, but I would say drums, guitar, and piano are like my faves.
Yeah, I think that actually, well, like, those are like the main instruments for the kind of music you create, which we'll talk about that very soon. I guess another part, like you've kind of been saying it, but a part of your, I guess, coming, there's like a, or I guess correct me if I'm wrong. There's a, there was a healing process when growing up, and part of it had to do with rediscovering your, or learning more about your Indigenous heritage through spiritual guidance and healing. Do you want to just, for me, explain that a bit more?
Yeah, sure. Like I was saying, I grew up on the reserve, a lot of culture there. But when you move away from your community, it's hard to learn the language and stuff like that. You really need the support of the community to kind of solidify those genetics, those genetic memories. And so moving to the city, a lot of it got diluted by, MTV or, the schooling system that, is very corrupt. And the indoctrinations. So I became very disconnected with who I was, and I just became assimilated. And with that, some of the guilt comes with it, because when you're told, from a young kid, and you're constantly being told that you're dirty, or you're hearing what the RCMP have to say about Indigenous people in Winnipeg, and you just start to realize, you're like, oh, I might as well just be someone else. And so in my youth, I wouldn't tell people that I was at First Nations. My dad told me not to. My mom was hanging out with some religious people, so we weren't able to burn sage at the house. So long story short, I was really disconnected with who I was, and that started to catch up with me. It started to catch up with my soul, and the way that I conducted myself as a being, and with the weight of racism and stuff, I fell into the traps of trying to numb the depression. And like a lot of people, I found substances as like alcohol and partying, and trying to just disconnect yourself even further from the self, which can be good sometimes, but in this instance it was doing more damage than it was good. And I eventually had to jump ship, and I left Winnipeg Treaty 1, and then in 2012 started my spiritual journey, where I had signed with a label back then, but I finished my record with them, and I quit music, and I packed my one guitar and a truck that my dad helped me purchase, and moved out west to get away from music and kind of do that geographical move. And I was thinking that if I got away from my problems, I could start fresh, but I didn't realize that it doesn't matter where you go, you are the problem. And so I for 8 years, I began this spiritual journey with going to different support groups, Buddhist meetings, treatment centers, trying to figure out and diagnose what was wrong with me. And so I went to a lot of these Christian-based support groups, AA, NA, SA, and it always came down to this Christian God, always giving, surrendering to this Christian God, and I just hated it, because the Christian God was associated with the residential schools where the missionary would come in and indoctrinate young kids, and my dad went to the residential schools. So for me, I couldn't allow myself to fully heal. I would always get to this spiritual roadblock, and I would stop, and I could never get to that next part of healing that I was so much looking forward to. And in my 6th year of my spiritual healing, living on Vancouver Island in Victoria, a First Nations fellow person who was inside the program was like, "Oh, hey, have you ever heard of like the 7 grandfathers teachings or any traditional teachings?" And I was like, "No, what is that?" And from then I was introduced to the 7 grandfather teachings and many other spiritual First Nation based teachings. And it was from there that I started to discover who I was and where I came from. And I knew that I was Ojibway. I knew that my mom was part Ojibway and Cree, and my dad was Ojibway. And so I started to discover all these things that were, either taken away or systemically diluted throughout the years. And it was there that I started to write a lot of lyrics that would later become Bleached Wavves, like the kind of blueprint of like, this is what I'm gonna do. This is my mission. I have to find out more about myself, and I have to like make like a body of work that describes this experience. And that's where a lot of my healing journey started. It felt like I had just been through detox or something once I discovered the First Nations teachings, because everything else before that was good, helpful information, but it just wasn't quenching my thirst that I was looking for. And once that started, it just kind of snowballed, and I started just like embracing myself. And once I learned that self-love and accepting myself, I was able to get over a lot of the depression, because a lot of it was feeling like that I wasn't good enough to even be in my own skin. And, but once I moved past that, I was able to finally heal. And that's what Bleached Wavves is really about.
Thank you for sharing all this personal stuff with us.
Yeah, it's kind of my duty too. In the program, you learn that humility, not in the sense that people are making fun of you, but humility where you're able to be in a point in your life where the ego is not in the way, and you're able to ask a fellow person for help, and that's true humility. And paying it forward is also showing that humility and being vulnerable to another human being. And that opens up real connection. So I am very open, but I also have been only telling people really the PG story of my healing process, because a lot of darkness was in there, but that's for a different story.
Another time.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a big journey for you. And I guess it came out to the new album. But okay, before talking about that album, I want to talk about now ask you about what like the type of music you play. But so your artist moniker, I know you as the short form ZOON. Could you pronounce the full name? I am terrible at pronunciations.
Yeah. So it's Zoongide'ewin. So the Z is kind of pronounced with an S. So it's Zoongide'ewin.
Zoongide'ewin.
Yeah, Gide'ewin. Gide'ewin, yeah, Zoongide'ewin. And that's from the 7 grandfather teachings. That's the step of courage. And Zoongide'ewin translate to someone with like it's like someone with a strong heart. And I named it after my mom because she was a single parent mom taking care of 5 4 kids. The 5th one didn't work out, and so it was. She showed a lot of sacrifice. So I named it after my mom for that reason, and then the Zoongide'ewin part. In the summertime, I was part of a sweat lodge where I was getting my spirit name, and the elder didn't know anything about my music, didn't know anything about really me, except for that I was a part of the community. And they at the sweat lodge, they said that Zoongide'ewin was my spirit name, and Zoongide'ewin translates to heart of the drum, which is really, it really connects with me a lot. And but yeah, so that's kind of where that's the originality of the origins of the name. Sorry.
It all worked out.
Yeah, it really did. It really did.
So how would you describe the musical style you have cultivated?
I know a lot of people have been calling it moccasin-gaze, and I relate to it because I do like shoegaze music, and but you know, I've been putting out this kind of music since 2007. As soon as I as soon as I got a recording machine. And then I took the 10 years away from it all. And in that 10-year gap, and all my early work is available on the internet too. It's just I went under a different name. But if you just type in Daniel Monkman Winnipeg, the music will pop up. So I've been putting out this kind of indigenous shoegaze music, but I never called it anything because I hadn't accepted myself as First Nations yet. So then I started my spiritual journey, and 8 to 10 years later, I put out my music, and people are like, "Oh, this is a moccasin-gaze," and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. That's really like crafty." But they were saying that there was another band called Zoongide'ewin who put out a record 2 years ago, and someone has been calling them moccasin-gaze, and so I just let people call it whatever they want. I just know that I've been doing it for a really long time, but I just hadn't called it anything except for experimental music, because that's really what I consider it, because it's not always going to be gazy, like I just finished writing like 2 songs that are all strings, and it's like an orchestral Nick Drake kind of thing, and when I was afraid of people using moccasin-gaze because I didn't want people to box me into something, so that if I put something else out, they'd be like, "Oh, this is so different from his moccasin-gaze." So, but people are calling it moccasin-gaze.
I think part of that, like, title, I guess for me, like, it does open the door to like different sounds and like
it's true.
Different expectations from what has come out in the past.
It's true. It's very true. Yeah.
And I think some of the best music is experimental, even if it's not like the traditional sense of experimental, just something completely different.
Yeah, totally. And there's yeah, it's true. And actually through the moccasin-gaze, I've been able to create a lot of different sounds that I don't think I may have gotten away with if I was just calling it a shoegaze record. But you're right, with the moccasin-gaze, I've been able to experiment with a lot of different instruments, like hand drums, indigenous hand drums, that has become a kind of a signature sound that even the band Zoongide'ewin, I wouldn't consider them shoegaze. I would like I'm sorry to say, but there's a lot of bands calling themselves shoegaze, and I'm no purist, but when it comes to shoegaze and people just add in a little reverb pedal and they're like, "Oh, it's shoegaze," I'm like, no, that's kind of just like, mashing up tomatoes half-assed and calling it ketchup. It's not really ketchup, in a weird way. And so I get it. They think that, but I would say my music is more of the traditional shoegaze mixed in with traditional Ojibway hand drums and chanting and flute. So you're right. It is moccasin-gaze has opened up like this kind of other realm within the shoegaze.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I was going to ask, like you mentioned a bit of it, how does your Indigenous heritage enter into your music?
I would say as an oral, I come from like oral tradition. Storytelling is really big for First Nations people. We didn't have much written language, so a lot of it was, you spoke to someone, you told them how the seasons worked, and that person would go out and do it, and that's how you would learn. And also just storytelling during winter times when we settle down is really big. So I felt like I explored a little bit of lyrics in Bleached Wavves just to fill up the gaps so people could digest it, but I pushed the vocals back so you experience the music and lyrics all at the same level. So that's my way of telling the story. Not really with lyrics to paint a picture, but just the textures coming in is the story. And that's how I think my indigenous background influences my music, is my ability to convey a story in my own unique way. I would say.
Cool. Yeah, I was actually wondering, I've listened to the album a few times and noticed that the vocals were set within all the other instruments, and wondering if that was an artistic choice of yours.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of people say that's shoegaze music, and that's how we like to mix it. But honestly, it's just no one has to. I wanted people to just experience it. When the lyrics or when the vocals are just a little bit higher in the mix, you fixate on the lyrics, and because my lyrics are very abstract, and most of the time are memory collages, that I didn't want people to focus on it too much, because it would be a rabbit hole, because a lot of it doesn't make sense. I use certain words in there that don't go well with the word before, because just unfortunately the word just works better in the melody, that certain word, and so it would just, so I wanted to just people to experience it all blended together.
That's very, that's a good textual thing to do, and especially to have the listener interpret the music or the music or the lyrics in their own way, and in not a non focused way, and just experience it. That's the best way. Yeah.
That's how I always, that's the kind of message that I've been pushing, is that the music isn't meant to be overanalyzed. It's just the music is supposed, because I do a lot of film work. So when you're making a film, when you're doing score, you're trying to bring out emotion with the film, right? And you're trying to create an atmosphere, and that was my approach with the music. I kind of wanted just to create an atmosphere for the listener to kind of listen, put it in, and go into their own mind, and maybe get into some kind of trance where they start thinking about their life, and something happened, maybe they could overcome something. That's why, that's a big reason why I made it too.
Awesome.
Because I love those those meditation, spoken word stuff, where it's just the guided meditation is drawing you in so that you can experience yourself, and that's what I like.
Awesome. Why don't we now talk a little bit more about Bleached Wavves, released through Paper Bag Records last June, and the debut for ZOON, your new name. Congratulations on the release.
Oh, thank you.
I guess we've been already talking about a lot about it, but maybe a little bit of what has this album allowed you to purvey in terms of voicing what's important to you?
Well, a lot of my songs are about a lot of my songs are about recovery, and that's a major theme that occurs throughout the album, and it's something that, you know, that I had to do. And it's there's many other things that I'm trying to push with the music, but a lot of it is healing and recovery and you know, being vulnerable. That's why I made the music very sensitive, and you can tell in certain parts it's just like really soft. But yeah, through the music, I just try to touch on recovery the most, I would say.
It's like, would it be like a personal antidote, like an audio thing that you had to release for yourself?
Yeah. It's like, in part of the recovery, you know, a record in time, putting something down and jotting it down, like, they call it playing the tape. So you write down one of your last rock bottom. And rock bottom is something that happens in recovery where you've lost, say, the support of your family, the support of your job, you're homeless, and you find yourself on the street. That's a rock bottom. Or death is a rock bottom, which I have, you know, I've overdosed too, and I've had my own near-death experience with it. And so in recovery, they encourage you to go back to that time when you're sober, and to go back to it as a reminder of what's waiting for you if you decide to give up on your recovery. And so Bleached Wavves was that expression of, like, now when I look at Bleached Wavves, I'm like, oh yeah, that's maybe where I had a rock bottom. That's when I was in, you know, this is when I experienced racism for the first time. And it's like it's a record in time to remind myself to be grateful and just remind myself what I've been through. You know, it's like yeah, that's what it is. It's like a record in time, but it's more of a therapeutic experience. So now it's like it's out, and I do feel better now that it's out, you know, even though it is really narcissistic to put something out like that and be like, this is what I've been through, now buy it from me for $20, you know. And like, you know, if I wish I didn't have to do that, but that's where we're at in capitalism, you know, exploitation and all that stuff. But yeah, on a deeper philosophical level, it was a release, and it was something that I needed to do.
Yeah, like that, being able to reflect on what you've gone through, like with just like this collection, like it's very, like, and that being a listener to hear that is very impactful.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, it seems like you've gotten good reception from it. Has it, like, connected with a lot of your audience?
You know, compared to last year when I didn't have anything. Oh, I guess it did come out last year, but the year before that, when I didn't put out anything, I was getting a lot of hype because people come to the live shows and their experience, and the live show is incredible and very big and very ethereal. And so I was getting a lot of good responses just from that alone. And once I started putting out singles, it became apparent that a lot of people liked it. And that was a really big surprise to me, you know, being a person who hadn't put out a proper record in almost 10 years, and didn't tour all that much. I was touring a lot in Ontario and a couple North America tours, but really I hadn't toured that much. So putting out a record, getting good response for the first couple of singles was like really huge. And after putting out the full length in June, I noticed a big difference, and not just from the way that people were talking about it, but also from like from an economic point of view too. Like, I was finally making money off of it, plus with today's technology, with Apple Music and Spotify, you can see where people are listening to it, how many times they're listening to it, how much times they listened to it and then bought it. So there's all these like statistics that you can look up and find out. And I just started to see that, like, as a new artist, some of these numbers were growing really big and are continuing to grow, which I'm completely grateful for. And putting it out has given me the ability to I probably won't have to go back to my day job. I'll be able to just continue making music, and to me that's like a really, really huge.
That is pretty huge. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. Me too. It's like, it's been a really long time, and I honestly didn't know if I was going to put out another record, and I'm just so glad that certain things happened, and it's out, you know, because trust me, like, I didn't think that it was going to happen, but yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Here we are.
Let us move on now. We're getting close to finishing our talk. Cool. Let us talk about Wavelength Winter Festival. Yes. How was it? How does it feel to be part of this festival?
I mean, it feels amazing, you know. I remember looking at Wavelength Festival for the last couple of years, hoping that I would be able to play a festival like that, or, you know, just to be, even to fill out an application to have them respond was like pretty big, you know, even just in the sense that a few years ago I would apply for every festival available and no one would get back to me, but now it's like festivals asking if I want to play. And it's, you know, not to get too like narcissistic about it, but as like as an artist, it's a big it's a really big compliment, and I'm very humbled to be part of it, you know. Unfortunately, you know, I won't be able to see the other bands play like on the stage, you know, go up next after them. It'll be all virtual, so I'll be watching from my bedroom, but yeah, just super grateful and humbled about it, you know. And yeah, just I'm really excited.
Yeah, this festival, even though it's virtual, is like really exciting. Yeah. Let me do like the promo for it. The live stream you're going to be performing in is on Saturday, February 20th. Through Wavelength's YouTube channel, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're playing along, or I guess virtually alongside Maurice and Backwash. Have you heard of those artists or listened to their music before?
Yeah, Backwash is... I like Backwash. My friend Adam Sturgeon sent me their record, their 2020 record. And I loved it. It was so cool. And Marcy is a friend from Montreal. So I'm excited to finally share a bill with her, or with them. And yeah, I'm just, it's such a big tease. I would love to play with these people on the same stage, you know, really feel the music. So, but you know, this is gonna be a new experience too. You know, I haven't watched a whole lot of live streams. I've done them, but I haven't really watched a whole lot of them. But every time that I have, I've gotten a little bit better equipment for my room. So now I can like blast the live stream on my big speakers, and I think it will help the experience.
Ooh, that sounds very nice.
Yeah.
Is there what can we expect from your performance? Can you tease us a little bit? Is there anything special?
There was going to be something special. But unfortunately it fell through. Not that it fell through, but it's just that things were just a little too rushed. But there was a member from a band called Broken Social Scene was going to be playing with me. Unfortunately, with things being rushed, we weren't able to figure it out. So then I had this other guitar player fill out. A day before the video shoot, it turns out that he was an anti-masker and refused to wear a mask. So I had to drop him in the night before. I brought in this new guitar player and quickly showed him the songs at the studio. So it's going to be a good experience, but it's going to be a little bit more experimental than how I normally do my set. My set is a little bit more it's structured in a very in a way that complements the members that I have. But with this one, with this performance, I wanted to kind of go back and be a little bit more experimental. So that's something to look forward to, because I think that when me and the band are improvising or being experimental, some really beautiful moments can happen that otherwise I don't think would have.
Yeah, I'm a musician myself, and I really rely on improvisation, and great moments come from it. So I am actually really excited to hear that, like, you're going to you're going to show us the experimental improvisation side of your music.
I really do think so. You know, there were some like beautiful improvised moments, especially, and helped me understand okay, so I guess this would be a teaser. Is the last song has helped me understand, and it's a kind of a different version of how we'd normally do it, but it's very big, and I can't wait for people to see it.
Awesome. Why don't we now wrap up? Like you've already been telling us, there's a new album in the work. Is that your main plan for the future? Yeah.
I mean, is everything that I say gonna go on air?
Oh. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just like, I'm just trying to, finish my record contract or something, and trying to make the best work that I can while still working with paper bags. So I just been focusing on trying to create my best work, and that Bleached Wavves was really tough, is going to be real tough, but I think people are going to really enjoy this next record. It's Bleached Wavves was like was almost like it's almost like when you get angry or something and you kind of like black out or something and you kind of trying to like piece back what had happened, and you're like, well, I know I was really angry, but like I don't really remember the fine details, and for this next one, for the second album, it's it's slowed down. Bleached Wavves was really fast, and it was like coming out of a coma or something, really confused. And you're like, what just happened? But with the second one, it's more like I'm creating this atmosphere and inviting people in, rather than Bleached Wavves was kind of just like I was jamming it down people's throats. Where now it's like I'm inviting people to this space and the sounds that I'm making, and it's a lot longer of an album too. Each song is I'm exploring ideas and stories and kind of focusing in where Bleached Wavves was memory collage after memory collage. Within one song was like 5 different moments in my life, in my childhood. And with this newer one, I'm just like focusing. One song is about one thing, and I'm really exploring that one idea and taking my time rather than being like, oh, it's almost 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Like, it's not long, it's just enough for radio play. Where now I'm like not really considering that, Like one song is like 7 minutes long, and I'm just trying to like space it out and go into a different just a different comfort zone, rather than writing a pop song. And now I'm just being like, okay, write a pop song, but how do I flip it upside down and really experiment with it?
That does sound exciting, actually. It'll certainly fit my radio program because I like to play longer songs.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I have perfect songs for you.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
How can our listeners, viewers, audience find you and support you?
Yeah, so people can find me on my Patreon too, which is Zoongide'ewin. So ZOONGIDEEWIN. You type that into Patreon and you can find me. And I don't have much stuff going on there because I made it when I was really desperate for money, like a while ago. And then, I got some like radio money. So I haven't been really doing too much on it, but I'm going to be putting a lot more effort into it. And I have a bunch of new stuff that I'm going to be uploading to it. And people can find me on Instagram at Zoongide'ewin. And my Facebook is Daniel Monkman. And the ZOON Facebook is just ZOON Music. And then my Twitter is Zoongide'ewin. And it should be very easy to find because there's only one person with that name, who's me. And yeah, I think that's all the avenues of how to, my Bandcamp is Zoongide'ewin Music. And yeah, I believe that's all my different applications that I use to promote my music.
Awesome. One last question, Daniel. What are your words of wisdom for us?
Practice self-love and show gratitude. And get enough sleep. I think that's perfect. That's what I'm trying to do.
Self-love and gratitude. Those are like simple but powerful words.
It's true. That's what I think a lot of people need to do. Because reconciliation can only happen within yourself. You can't legislate it in. So for people to actually live up to this truth and reconciliation, you have to practice self-love. And you need to show gratitude, because then you have to show gratitude for the earth that was given to you for you to build a sidewalk on or something, or a supermarket or a Costco, So we kind of have been disconnected. But when you practice gratitude and self-love, you start to respect others, I think, a little bit more better.
Yes, that's great. Daniel, thank you very much for talking with me today and for our listeners both on the radio waves and with Wavelength.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicholas, for this. This has been really great. Thank you so much.